This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Championship fight may be over, but Watkins Glen almost always puts on a good show for just about any car you throw at it. We saw it earlier this week with the GTE Series putting on an incredible fight all the way to the checkered flag. Here's hoping we get another jaw-dropping clash as we get ready to watch round 10 of the PRL Formula 3 Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Samuel Ryman. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Watkins Glen is one of those fairy tale cases of a track falling into disrepair, only to rise from the ashes and return to its former glory. To learn about what it's like today, why don't we hop on down to our track guide. Welcome to Watkins Glen International. Situated in upstate New York, just south of the Finger Lakes, this track has seen it all. Few road circuits can boast hosting Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR, and IMSA during its history. Though it did have a brief fallow period in the early 80s, thanks to the investment of local companies, it's grown into one of the premier road tracks in the U.S. With 4 layouts to choose from that range between 2.5 and 3.5 miles in length, lap times can vary greatly. But it also means it's suitable for lots of different levels of racing, from amateur to pro. The one thing that stays consistent no matter which car and which layout you're using is that Watkins Glen means speed. Many of the straights are very long, and the majority of the corners are fast sweepers. Some of them include a surprising amount of banking as well. Combine that with the proximity of the barriers, and this historic circuit retains a very old-school feel. Drivers in lesser-powered cars can expect drafting battles, while higher-powered machinery will test the skill and bravery of their pilots. Some of the turns are visually iconic, such as the carousel and the S's. Others, like the inner loop, the chute, and turn 9, greatly challenge even the expertly skilled. And of course, we haven't even mentioned the drastic amount of elevation change drivers experience. Between its rich history and popularity among drivers, this track stays busy and seems likely to be that way for a long, long time. You see some of the sites around here. There's a few different layouts to take part in, but Sam, what's the layout for today?
Well, it's not this one. It's very much similar to this one. It is a boot, but we're going all the way down the back straight, which means lots of overtaking opportunities going into the carousel, the outer loop, whatever you'd like to call it. So that means there's plenty of good passing opportunities throughout the lap and lots of top speed. We're going to see lots of drafting battles throughout the race. Here we go. We've updated the graphic. That's the one we're racing at today. See how that little squiggly line on the top side of a circuit is now a straight line? That's exactly what we're doing. We're going fast. They're going to be carrying a whole lot of speed there into the carousel, and things could get very dicey indeed. And then, of course, we race into the boot section at the end of the lap, and we'll be going around here about 27 times today in this 45-minute race.
Should be an interesting one to watch. As I said, it tends to give good races. But before we get to that, let's talk about our sponsor. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Let's take a look at the championship, which, as I said, is now over for the top spot. And though there are still some places that can change around below that, as you can see. It's really not close except for between 4th and 5th. Santana and Clenard certainly have a tight little fight to try and sort that one out. But really, the top three are very spread apart from one another. Holland cannot be caught by sights. He is our champion with a round to spare. Now, we have a teams championship as well in this series, Sam. So why don't you run us down on that?
Well, here we go. Vantage Zero, like you were just saying, Joe, right at the end of a championship now. The championships are pretty much wrapped up, and that is the case over here on the team stand-ins as well. However, you can tell second place definitely up for grabs. Pretty much whichever one of those two teams you see in second or third there scores the most points today will finish on top. So that will be between Rust Racing and Vantage Rosso. Davidson Motorsport looked to have fourth locked up because Lavoie Motorsport down in fifth, quite a ways behind them.
Now, if you've never watched this series before, here's a quick rundown on what this race itself entails. We are in the finale, as we mentioned, and of course, they have one drop week in the points in these 45-minute races that take place once a week. It is an open setup series. Now, they can tweak them to their liking, but they've limited the fuel compared to what the real Formula 3 car can run, so you can expect one pit stop today. They have a 20 incident limit, which means they will be disqualified if they hit those 20 incidents. Not as likely to see it here at Watkins Glen with all the grass runoff they have in this old version of the circuit. But they also have bonus points that are up for grabs there. You can see the different ways that you can earn those here in each race, which this race is once again being broadcast on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe. All you got to do that is just go below this video on YouTube. You'll see a big red button that says subscribe. If you haven't done so yet, click it. You won't miss a moment here on IESN. Currently out there, it's not too bad at conditions. It's only 85 degrees Fahrenheit on the track surface, which is not too bad for qualifying here, Sam, which is underway. And drivers seem to be enjoying it because I see just about everybody out except for a scant few.
Yeah, it's actually quite late in the day, virtual standard time, as I like to call it. It's about 5:30 p.m., and we've still got 8 minutes left of qualifying as Greg Seitz takes the toe to the pits there. They get ready for another run. So I don't think it's going to be dark by the end of this race. It'll be nighttime, and that would be a big problem if it was, because this track doesn't have lights and the cars don't have headlights. But it means track temperature will be a bit cooler, so hopefully the drivers are prepared for that. Greg Seitz is certainly prepared for it right now. Half a second over his closest competition, and his closest competition, a dead tie right now between Stephen Virardi and David Holland, both of them sitting on a 137.338.
We're right on board with Kevin Santana right now. That last lap didn't count for him, unfortunately, so the 666 stays in 8th place. I'm looking to see Holland. Oh, I thought Holland was close to the end of a lap, but he either had a mistake or decided he wanted to park it and do some tweaks in the garage, because he's not even on pit lane now. So Seitz is sitting pretty. Verity is actually coming out of, or into the boot rather, at this moment.
Yeah, and it's definitely not too late to head on into the pits and make some adjustments to your car. We still have about half of this qualifying session left. Once again, you talked about the GT series being here a couple of nights ago, Joe, and they put on a good show for us. It was also their final race of the season over in the PRL GTE series, and we had a good turnout there of about 30 cars. We got a solid turnout here on the high end of 20 cars, almost 30 cars here. It's always nice to see in this PRL league high participation season long, even towards the end of the year when some championships are wrapped up, and every now and then you'll get a driver or two not turn up who's had a bad season, be like, I'll get them next week, I'll get them next season. But we got a good turnout here. Should be a good show. And honestly, this race is going to go by in a hurry. 45 minutes can sound, well, it doesn't sound like a lot, but especially here at Watkins Glen, when it's hard to break a draft, it's hard to break a slipstream, you're going to be pack racing for the opening few laps. By the time things finally settle down about 5 laps in or so, you know, you're going to be approaching the third race distance or so. So it is going to go by in a hurry, and I think you're actually going to want to try and get a good qualifying today, because if you do qualify towards the back, you're going to run out of time very quickly, and also you're going to be at a high risk of being caught in an incident with the speeds these cars carry and the closeness of the walls.
Watching all the cars come across the line, haven't seen many improvements, to be honest. Daniel Barnett improved on what was no laps counted so far, so he goes up to 19th. So we now watch Eric LeBlanc as he comes across, and looks like he is not able to go quicker than that 38.4, so he'll stay in 16th place. Holland, I believe, was just on an out lap, so he's starting a timed one now. Not going to have too much time to try and complete a better one. Greg Seitz with that half a second, not happy with things because he keeps going, although he doesn't find anything better than that 36.8. In fact, he was a little bit slow on that one, so must have had a little bit of a mistake as you see him go wide through turn one. What about Verity here? Still in second place, trying to get quicker than Holland, than this tie to the 1,000th that they've got right now. Let's see what he's got. And it's still slower than that 37.3, so I'll have to try again.
Yeah, and Holland's lap this time around isn't going to count. He was actually warming these tyres up on the back straight, and you can't really blame him, honestly. These lower end formula cars, the tire temperature makes a huge impact on how well your car's going to stick through the corners. And considering there's only 11 turns on this configuration of Watkins Glen, you don't have a whole lot of corners where you can warm it up. And these cars don't exactly have a DAS system that they can use to warm their tires up on the straights either. So they got to do it the old-fashioned way sometimes.
Still nothing from both Clenard and Soroy, who are top 10 drivers trying to get a little bit higher up. One I'm curious about too is Kevin Santana is down in 12th right now. He tends to be more of a top 5 driver, so I'm kind of shocked to see this Virginia's driver still out of the top 10. And it's not for a lack of laps. He's gotten 3 timed ones in out there, and he's only going to be able to get 1, maybe 2 more in.
Without insulting Watkins Glen, because it's such a fantastic racetrack, I almost feel that this is one of the easier road courses to get a hot lap in, and sometimes that makes it more difficult for the drivers who are good road course racers to stand out in qualifying. You know, it kind of evens the field out a little bit. I don't think it's unusual to have a mixed up grid at Watkins Glen with drivers who are normally not the best on road courses up towards the front and vice versa. But I think when it comes time for the race, we're still going to see the cream rise to the top. It normally does, no matter what road course you're at. And of course, at the end of the day, we're still seeing Greg Seitz and David Holland sitting first and third on the grid right now. But basically, I'm saying Kevin Santana fans, don't worry too much right now. Things are very tight. Back where he is, if he picked up so much as 0.2 of a second, he would be 6th on the grid. So I think he'll find his way up there.
Speaking of 6 on the grid, that's where Clenard moved himself with that last lap. Gained just a couple tenths, and that's good enough to put the 24 on the third row as we watch Barnett cross the line as well. Checking to see who's close to finishing up at the front that we've been watching, as this is James David. You see, whoa, the Canadian getting it completely wrong on the first corner, unfortunately. Greg Seitz around again. This will be his final flying lap that he'll start here, if he wants to take it at least. This last one, again, not quicker. So if he wants to improve, he'll have to keep going.
Yeah, and Holland did another lap of warming up his tyres here, and now all of a sudden, when he gets going, it's with Greg Seitz in front of him. Maybe he's actually doing a bit of testing here to see what, watch his F3 screen, his relative screen that we call it on iRacing, and see what parts of the track Greg is pulling away from him and what parts he's catching up on him.
Only 30 seconds left. Here comes Santana. So he will actually, I was wrong. It was 2 laps left that he was able to do here. Oh, and it's a 37.7. That bumps him up to 7th place. You were just about right there, Sam.
Yeah, well, he didn't gain the 2/10 I wanted. He only gained 1/10. If he gains one more tenth, he'll get up to 6, and he'll have another lap to do it, as you say. Checkered flag is out, and I think David Saroy will be the first driver to complete his qualifying session.
He is going to take it to the line. He sits in 4th. Ooh, a 37.4, but that doesn't change his position. He stays on the outside of row 2. Barnett doesn't improve as he crosses the line. Nicholas Delp is going to be the next one. He's in 11th with a 37.9, about 1.1 seconds off of our pole position. It is a long lap around here. Oh, and that unfortunately is going to end his lap.
Oh, and that's bad news
into the
because
tires.
for David Holland, he's coming through the final turn right now. Fortunately, the track clears up for him just in time.
Does he improve at 37.1? And that will put him into 2nd. That clears him of Verity, who would not be able to respond because he's not out on track. Trying to see if that's it. I believe that's everybody out on the circuit who can qualify. Our grid is now set here for the finale. Let's go through that starting order. Greg Seitz starts on the pole with David Holland next to him. It's been a bit of an appropriate end because it's been these two who've been duking it out. Stephen Verity will be starting in 3rd with David Saroy in P4. Raymond Day starts 5th today with Rod Clenard on the outside of row 3 and 6. Kevin Santana wound up in 7th with a good final qualifying lap, and Daniel Cranefoos in 8th. Sebastian Prue starts 9th today. Rounding out the top 10, it's going to be Armando Edwards.
Nicholas Delp will start from 11th position ahead of Andrew Duffy. Joshua Daniels will be starting from 13th ahead of Eric LeBlanc. Sheldon Rosenbaum and Lionel Duprat, they are on row number 8 with Christopher Richards and David Cristelli behind them on row 9. James David and Daniel Barnett will round out the top 20.
Only 2 more drivers put laps in. David Blackwood in 21st and Owen McLaughlin in 22nd. I suspect, since it's the finale, we got a few drivers who are looking to have some fun. Gunderson, Wildridge, Lee, and Gore did not set a time. And, well, this track is known for the draft offering opportunities to try and pass Sam. So I suspect they're just going to try and see how far up the grid they can climb here at the end.
Yeah, also a way to avoid any kind of turn 1 calamities. Watkins, Glen, no matter what car you're in, no matter if it's real world or virtual, turn 1 is tricky here, especially on the opening lap. There's a lot of different ways to take a corner. When there's a lot of different ways to take the corner, that also means there's a lot of different braking zones, and that has worked out not in the favor of the field on more than one occasion.
But no, also have to remember they've got that almost street course-like section up the S's where it gets narrow, if we have some sort of accident, this is the new damage model. There are going to be parts flying, and for the first time, debris is a real concern for these drivers. They don't want anything to happen here on the first couple laps because they might not be able to avoid all the stuff bouncing around within the barriers. As you can see, we're just waiting on a couple more to find their way out to the grid. We've got Verity out there. First of our front row now, Holland has plopped his car just behind that starting line. So we are on board one of the Rust machines currently. Probably Cranefoos, I'm assuming there. Look at all those beautiful cars waiting for the green flag here for the finale. Seitz, Prue, and Santana are your last 3 that need to finish up their setup and put the car on the grid. So we've only got a few seconds left here.
Yeah, Greg Seitz might be just trying to make it interesting on us, saying, no, you know what, I'll pit start, try and win from there.
There he goes now. So 74 is on track. That's everybody. That means the engines start to rev as the lights come up. Green flag is out. Off the line. It's a horrible start for Verity. In fact, already David Saroy is making a charge on him around the outside. Holland took a look, but decided better of it as they come down into the 9D. A little bit of side-by-side, but otherwise this is looking relatively tame.
Yeah, but Raymond Day almost got it all wrong though. He got right up on the curb in turn one, got a bit of snap oversteer. If that had gone bad, he would have gotten right into the side of Stephen Verity. But now, of course, the interesting thing as they go on down the back straight here is no inner loop. These drivers are going to be accelerating. They're battling for position. They're battling for the lead. David Holland to the outside of Greg Seitz. Greg Seitz almost trying to side draft off of him, but it's not going to be enough. David Holland leads into the outer loop, but he might not lead coming out of it.
Holland has the inside coming down into the chute. Can he finish the pass as they go side by side? Yes, Seitz has to give it up, but Seitz has nothing to lose here. Again, that championship is over. At this point, all he cares about is the pride of winning the finale and putting one over on the driver that's practically dominated him this season. You see mostly single file, a little bit of drivers taking a look coming up and out of the toe of the boots. Duffy going very defensive there in the background, trying to hold off Nick Delp for 12th position. He successfully does so.
Oh, first drive in the wall. Daniel Barnett has lost it under braking, and he's got wheel damage. So unfortunately, I think he might be going into the pit single car incident.
Yeah, he's limping right now, so it does not look good for him. So you see our leaders come around, finishing the first lap. Now, that's a good run coming out of the final corner from Greg Seitz, but I don't think he really wants to make the move. And look at that, Sam. He does indeed back out.
Yeah, and that's him knowing that this is... Oh, boy, big moment there. I think he got a little... I don't know if that was intentional, how wide he ran, but he knew he had to cut back to avoid that grass. It was a big swerve and going to cost him a little bit of top-end speed, but not enough. He's still going to have a nice run on David Holland here, go to the outside. Now, you might think, well, that's not very smart going to the outside. The reason he's doing this, Joe, is as long as he can stay alongside... Oh, there's contact! That is not the first time we've seen that this season.
Yeah, that was... I could tell that was netcode even from my angle there. And his day is done on only the second lap. This has been something of a curse between those two. The third time this season that they have made contact that shouldn't have been contact. Off into the barriers he goes with a huge thunk. And before he can even get the car going, he can tell it is done.
Yeah, his plan was just stay on the outside of Holland, and then he would be on the inside for the next left-hander. But again, a couple of yards between them. But like you say, Joe, that's the third time that's happened between these two drivers this season, and you would think maybe they'd realize that that curse exists. They give each other a little bit more room. But you know what? It's the final race of the season. Like I say, neither of them had anything to lose. They were going for the win. Right now, it's David Holland on top, but he still might not win this race. David Saroy not far behind him.
So we watch them come down the front stretch right now. Oh, we had a problem with Armando Edwards as well. Looks like he's found the wall coming out of the penultimate corner. I think he also had some significant damage from that. Yeah.
He's not the first one to crash here. This turn can almost be taken flat out. It can be taken flat out depending on what kind of car you're in, but at the same time, if you get it just a tiny bit wrong and you get too much of the curb on exit, that'll happen to you.
Well, let's head back to some of the battling we've got on track, because Raymond Day and Stephen Verity were having a nice little back and forth there once again at the end of the backstretch. But it was Day who took the 5th place away from Stephen. So he falls back in line now, firmly in the boot here. They climb back uphill.
As you mentioned, good battles going on. Oh, we got a crash. Joshua Daniels has had an incident entering the boot. He's missing his right rear wheel.
And he might have had a little bit of help. I can't tell if Cristelli made contact or what here. We'll get a good angle. This is down into the toe of the boot. Cristelli's in the orange machine, I believe. No, he's the one behind him there. Once again, just getting into him, turning him around, all the momentum hard to hold up. This will give us a better angle here on board to see how exactly hard he hits. It was just a small tap, to be honest.
Yeah, how'd you like that? The wheel didn't come off from the initial contact. It was the way it got folded underneath the car that flew it off. Oh boy, things are getting close between Kevin Santana and Stephen Veredi as they went up the hill. They almost made contact, Joe, going through the Armco section, and that would have been very ugly indeed.
Go side by side once again, and that's Steven down to the inside. But look at how much speed Santana carries into the carousel. In fact, this is going to give him the inside as they come down to the chutes. I think he can get it done here. This has proved well for other drivers so far, and indeed, the 666 is back into 6th.
Yes, here's what kind of anticipated a little bit when we saw that Kevin Santana wasn't doing his normal qualifying pace, is that we figured he'd be able to still use his good road racing skills and racecraft to work his way up to the front of the field, and he's headed in that direction. James David, he's had a single car spin, I think, coming out of a boot, put it in the wall. I don't know how badly damaged his car is. It looks like it's crabbing.
Wow, this has been an attrition-filled race, and a lot of them seem like just minor errors that have had big consequences. Yeah, it looks like he slapped it, but hard to tell if that was enough to really kill the car. Yeah, it did, because he just took a tow, so it looks like James David is also done.
This is good news about large fields like this, Joe. We can watch attrition, but we still have plenty of good battles out here. Still have lots of cars running on the lead lap.
Yeah, I think Verity's not giving up on this. And just behind them, that's Daniel Cranefoos back there. He's one of our drivers contributing towards the points battle up at the top as they go side by side yet again down the backstretch. Verity clear past Kevin this time before they even get to the corner.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of straight to do it cleanly there. It's every other turn the drivers have to be worried about. Meanwhile, our viewers can probably tell by checking on the left side of their screen, but not much to report up front. David Saroy is still keeping tabs on David Holland, but Holland's sitting quite comfortable, about a second ahead of him right now.
Yeah, it really has not been where the action has been as Santana puts his wheels into the dirt. That's what caused the lax accident we saw with David. He's got to be careful with that. He hits the heel of the boot now, tucking it nice and down to the apex, still on the chase for 6th place from Stephen Verity. Just behind them, Cranefoos continuing to watch. I thought the draft would pull him in closer up the backstretch. Doesn't seem to be quite the case.
There's a good little scrap going on from about 17th on back right now between David Blackwood, Don Lee, and Owen McLaughlin. This is actually for the tail end of the cars that are left now. I think we are down to about 20 cars, but still a pretty neat scrap right now being won by David Blackwood.
Yeah, this is a good fight. You're right, this is the last driver still running. And down to the inside, looks like Don Lee is hungry enough to try and attempt it into the 90. He could regret this if he does get by. Blackwood lets him through, or tries to let him through, just as suddenly they find that Owen McLaughlin is trying to get into things. So they're going to go wheel to wheel as they climb up the S's. It is flat out through here, but a disappearing car in the form of Lee does not make things nice for Blackwood. Finally, they get up to the top, continuing to blink. Lee causing all kinds of consternation for that number 75. He gives him plenty of space off to the left side. Ignore the wheel bouncing down the track. That is not actually there. And they finally get to the corner, but it looks like Lee, with a shorter run, is going to be able to hold on to 18th.
Yeah, there was a relatively uncontested switch for 6th place down the back straight. Once again, Santana did to Veredi what Veredi did to him the previous lap. The bad news for Stephen Veredi is him switching back and forth with Kevin Santana has allowed Daniel Cranefoos to run them both down. He's in 8th and could be thinking about 6th in the short term here.
And it's all over the gearbox of Veredi right now. If we want to head up to that again for this 6th place position, 7th place position rather. As you can see them come out of the final corner, 2 different lines between them, but they managed to exit with about the same speed. The draft pulling in Daniel, and he looks a little bit down to the inside into the 90, thinks better of it, backs out, sets himself up for the exit. Let's see if this works as easily for him as it did for Kevin.
Now these cars are open setup, so you can tweak them to be a little bit faster in the straight line than your competitor, but the reality is this straight is so long, no matter what setup you have, your car's probably going to be good in a straight line with a slipstream, and Cranefoos is able to make that move stick on Varady. Let's see if Stephen is able to respond at all.
Looks like he's not going to for now, but he could hold on as long as he keeps decent pace. Down into the toe of the boot. Again, all he needs to do is cling to that slipstream until they get back out of the 90 once again, and maybe he could return the favor. Up ahead of them, it looks like Prue and Day are getting a little bit close here. This would be for 4th position.
Yeah, and before the sim brews, Joe, I want to make a note that one nice thing about the Skippy car is it's quite easy for the iRacing mechanics to repair it. A car that may look totaled can get back into this race, and we are having some lapped cars who have been involved in incidents get back out there again today. That could play a role later on in the race. It could mess with some of the leaders a little bit, so just something to keep tabs on as we go along.
Both the Skippy and the F3, relatively easy for them to fix.
Of course, this is in the Skippy, yeah.
And here we go. It looks like this was a good run from Day. They come out of the S's up to the crest, just poking his nose out at the last moment. Prue is going to cover off the inside in that orange machine. Raymond Day down to the outside. This has worked sometimes as they almost touch wheels, getting awful close to one another down the backstretch. But it looks like momentum falling away from him. No, he comes right back at him using the banking. Great launch off the corner for the number 77. He's got half a car length ahead. They break into the chute. Oh, but a great defense from Sebastian Prue, who pays the favor back, also carries his speed well, gets the inside coming into the toe of the boot, and he is going to retain that 4th position.
You know, we saw the GT cars for the PRL racing here Tuesday night, and we saw something there happening a lot that we're not seeing any of tonight, Joe, and that was they were saving fuel. I don't think I've seen any driver taking it conservatively so far. Big crash behind him. Kevin Santana hard into the wall. He's just ripped half the left side of the car off of it.
Oof, yeah, this one is bad. And unfortunately, it was all his own error. And we'll look at the replay. It looks like he just sends it in hot. So let's watch from on board. Yeah, that thing got away from him, and then he just never was able to collect it. So that is another DNF today. I see James David has gotten back out here. So is Barnett. So we're down to 21 cars left. 21.
However many cars are left, I tell you, Raymond Day is 4th of them because, oh boy, he's trying to do the Greg Seitz line on the outside here, pinch Sebastian Prue on the inside curve, and hope that there's not any net code, and this time there's not. And Ray Day gets up to 4th.
Back downhill, the lowest part of the course here at the toe of the boots, and he's not going to be able to attack back on Raymond Day as we ride on board with Sebastian.
Yeah, the battle for 6 behind them is actually a little bit more intense. Cranefoos and Varady don't want to be in 7th.
Side by side, it's a game of chicken here into the heel of the boots. Cranefoos gives it up initially, goes for the over-under, but it'll give him the outside of the off-camber turn 9, and he doesn't even get side by side. Steven holds on to 6 as they continue to fight. Nick Delp now sizing them up. And I think if they do fight enough out there, he's not too far behind. This is looking like it could get very spicy, and we are about 15 minutes in, down to the inside, coming into the 90. Again, surprised that we're seeing someone making a move considering how powerful the slipstream is, and Cranefoos gets by. Verity now is going to have the opportunity to return it on him. as they also bring in that bright green machine of Nick Delp.
Yeah, they're having fun, but it's not the smartest racing they could be doing. As you're saying, it's more so helping the drivers in 8th and 9th than this battle for 6th and 7th. But both of these drivers have money on the don't pass line and don't want 7.
And Stephen easily gets it back from Daniel down the backstretch, plunging it into the the chute one more time. They definitely lost ground to Nick Delp. You can see visibly how much closer he is. Even Andrew Duffy in the 019 back there, the 4th one, is within about 3/4 of a second of Nick. Wow, and Nick has gained a lot through that corner. That car is looking mighty handy through these turns.
Yeah, and someone might say, well, aren't these drivers potentially trying to leapfrog each other down the back straight and, pull away from work together, pull away from their competitors behind? And yeah, that would make sense if they were passing on the back straight, but they're passing everywhere. They're running side by side everywhere, and that's definitely not helpful.
That 58 car is loving this. Coming out of the front stretch. Or out onto the front stretch, rather. This could be his best chance, depending on what happens with those in front of him. Looks like Kranefuss learned his lesson as he does not make an attempt. As we got a big bobble, though, and a horrible exit for the number 4 machine. In fact, already slow. Daniel's going to have a huge run as they come up through the second part of the S's, now in the third apex of it. Still, he's side by side, as just behind them, Nick Delp, does he want to make it 3 wide? He's closing in. Not quite going to get there in time by the time they lift off for this carousel sweeper around the outside. And they all get back in line.
Yeah, that mistake from Stephen was actually a bit of a blessing in disguise. It stopped Kranefuss from getting a run on him because he was kind of able to position his car in the center of a track, right in the path where Kranefuss couldn't really get by him, and that meant Kranefuss had to lift off. He lost his run, and Varady was able to keep the position. But here we go, 6th to 9th now. You can almost throw a blanket over them, and I think things will be a little bit more interesting next time around.
And Danny's getting very brave. You could see he was closing right up to the rear wing of the number 4 and not giving a whole lot of space. The closer you run like that, the more risk if they make a mistake that you give them a little tap, and contact here has had bad results so far for most drivers.
Yeah, with the high speeds, the close walls, and the fragility, if that's a word, of these cars, that normally is the case with these F3 machines. And we've got an issue here with Sheldon.
Yeah, Rosenbaum off at the side of the track. I think he made a slight bit of contact with the wall. I think we're pulling up the replay here. Yeah, it's just the tiniest of nudge. But thankfully, these Italian cars are not that fragile. So he's going to get away with it for now.
Yeah,
Disappointed I did not make my director laugh with that joke.
As we come back to live action, Daniel Kranefuss just took 6 from Varady once again, and Duffy got by Delp for 8, so maybe he'll have a go.
Ooh, and that's an interesting development for sure. I thought that we'd see Delp make the move first. Andrew Duffy obviously in a hurry, up from 12th, now into P8, looking at a couple more positions to be able to be gained. Let's watch from his perspective and really get a sense of how steep this rise is. Into the heel of the boot. Doesn't get an opportunity at this point. Continuing to climb, they return to the main portion of the track. I've been watching our leaders, and Holland and Soroy were actually only 7/10 apart not long ago, and I think David must have made a mistake because it's up to 1.3 now. So he's very quickly lost half a second on him.
Yeah, no, David Soroy's been doing a good job of just staying about a second behind Holland, but like you say, he's probably getting a little bit of help from the slipstream, so he doesn't want to let that gap open up too much, or else he will be slower. Right
on board with Soroy down the backstretch. keeping an eye on Duffy because I think Nick Delp got himself a handy little exit out of the 90. And he might decide to try and get this position back because he's getting right up on the tire tracks of that red machine. And in fact, yes, he is going to go for it. So down to the inside, Nicholas Delp trying to take 8th place back, but he's not successful. Didn't quite have the run that he needed.
Yeah, and the reason he didn't was because Duffy was doing a good job at getting the slipstream off of Arady's car. And so Delp wasn't going a whole lot faster than Duffy, and so that's why Duffy was able to keep the position.
Up and over one more time. Now down to 24 minutes. We're getting very close to the halfway point. Still haven't seen anybody take the risk with an early stop, which jives with what we've seen much of the season. Most drivers tend to go a little bit long, but with all these battles, I would have thought that anybody who thinks they're faster than those around them would elect to come in, Sam.
Yeah, well, pit road's still been kind of crowded. Sorry, we have one car just getting the wall works in the final turn, but it's a lap car. Oh, here we go. Andrew Duffy is the first driver to come into the pits.
All right, Andrew's listening to the broadcast. So the 019 trundling down at pit speed, looks for his stall. Where is this going to bring him out? And I think, did you mention that Don Lee went off in the penultimate corner back there?
Crash. Don Lee's gone off, and Paul Wieldridge has had a big incident. I don't know if he was trying to avoid him or something. But yeah, let's see what happened to Wieldridge here, because he was one driver who was running on the lead lap still in an intact car.
I don't think he was trying to take avoiding action, unless he got thrown off by the car being there. But,
was he already missing the back end of his car before this?
Not on my screen. It doesn't look like our director shows that. So I think the Indiana driver was okay at that point. By the way, Duffy finished his stop at a normal time, just under 6 seconds. He returns in 14th, and he is out without any traffic around him. So that could pay dividends compared to those who are battling so hard amongst one another for 6th position.
I think it's the black paintwork on the back of his car was making it look like some of it was damaged, but it wasn't. It's just the way his paint goes. So the rest of the field completes another lap. Leaders elect not to come in.
Let's take a look at the battle that we saw Duffy duck away from. You can see them weaving down the front stretch now. Daniel trying to break that slipstream, but Verity's having none of it. He stays right with him. Both of them really pushing the exit of the 90, using all that paved runoff.
Yeah, Delp came in. You would have seen that at the back of your picture. Now, of course, that'll be interesting to see where he comes out with relation to Duffy, considering they were close on track together. Also noticed Delp took tyres. I wonder if we'll see a mixed strategy on that, considering this isn't the hardest track on tyres.
When very close timing between Delp and Duffy as we continue to watch the race on track here between Kranefoos and Verity. Delp came out right behind Duffy, so he does have the slipstream, and the battle continues on. Some more drivers willing to take a risk here. Rosenbaum, Gore also pitting. Although Rosenbaum with a very long stop.
Yeah, well, it might be repairing damage. I want our director to go back about a minute in time to Tyler Gore coming into the pits.
All right.
Yeah. He doesn't hit anything. That's what happens, Joe.
It looks like we might need to back up just a little bit. Whoa! Okay, well, we got a little glance of it. This is actually a magnificent job to keep it from hitting anything, because that's a narrow part of the track. Wow. Trying out for the stunt show, apparently. The Canadian finds it backwards and somehow gets it turned around. Meanwhile, we do have front runners in pit lane. David Soroy is taking service. So is Clenard Prue in his stall.
Yeah, isn't this annoying? All the leaders come in except for the actual lead of a race. He's not only beaten you on track, he's done a better job of saving fuel than you.
Clenard back out, Proy back out, Raymond Day. Ooh, Day's going to come out in traffic. Cranefoos, what's going on with him here? Is this a speeding penalty, maybe?
Yeah, potentially could be another incident, another instance of a car carrying a bit of damage that they're being forced to get repaired.
I'm not sure I remember him running over anything. Unless he hit a curb too hard or something. He is coming back out.
I feel like that was longer than 15 extra seconds that you get assessed for a speeding penalty. All right, so you would assume that Holland is going to run out of fuel now and needs to come in.
Well, Verdi's still out there, but you're right, Holland's in.
Kind of conservative on pit entry there, I thought. He slowed down a little bit before the cones. Might be trying to create a little bit of drama here, but that's something that can cost you time.
Well, and you know, I feel like we saw this from David at Silverstone last week, too, that he took it a little bit easy coming down in because he knew he had a gap and he didn't want to do anything to cause him a penalty or lose control. So as long as he doesn't lose too much time, he should theoretically be okay. Where is Soroy? Oh, actually,
he's coming with speed.
Oh, well, maybe that was too much time. I think Soroy's got the slipstream even here.
135 miles an hour at the cross for Holland. Soroy only a couple miles an hour faster. He's closer than he was before. Close enough to still have the slipstream. Holland still got the lead. He's still got the potential win for now. But Soroy is definitely still within striking range. However, David Soroy hasn't been able to do anything all race. He's been sitting about a second back of Holland all race long. Now he's still in that position, but he's got to do something about it.
It settles out to about 7/10, the gap between himself and the number 18. So as Soroy follows him down the hill, can he use that slipstream? Is he good enough in these corners to keep touch with David Holland, or will he lose it yet again in the last 17 minutes of this race? No pressure from behind. Rod Clenard about 4 seconds back. It's going to take a lot of fighting for them to lose enough ground to him that he'll be a threat.
Yeah, unfortunately, things have spread out quite substantially throughout the top 10. Now that all the drivers have came out the pits, our dynamic timing will show you the intervals on the left-hand side of your screen. But as soon as one car gets within a second of another, they pick up a slipstream, and I'm sure we'll see plenty of battles going towards the end of a race, including this one for the win, because Soroy is closing in on Holland. And honestly, if he gets a nice run out of a 90 here, I think we could see a change for the lead right now.
Yeah, he was down to 0.3 of a second by the time they braked for the 90. Coming back up the hill. What has he got? What is he willing to do? If you were Soroy, do you attack immediately, Sam, or do you wait?
You go now.
That's what he seems to think. So, David Soroy on the lunge to the outside. Let's see if he can complete it. He's fully ahead. He chops him off. So, Holland, for the first time this race, will not be leading. He falls in behind the rear wing of that number 19.
I think Soroy might have seen what happened between Holland and Seitz at the start of the race and realised, no, I don't want to be side by side with Holland going into this corner. I'm going to make sure I have the top spot, and he does. So now, of course, the question is, what can Soroy do without following a car in front of him? And what can Holland do? Is his car going to behave okay with traffic in front?
So we've had a few drivers who have been big climbers this race, as well as we see another battle on screen between Gunderson and McLaughlin, but Gunderson takes it way out into the gray stuff, and he is going to lose out big time. So Owen down to 12th position, unfortunately, with that. Gunderson actually has really been on the move. Started this thing in 25th. He was one of our drivers that did not qualify, up to 11th currently. Christopher Richards did qualify, and in 17th, he's up to 9th place. This is a great race by the number 49.
Yeah, we have 18 cars left on the lead lap. 19th on back is 3 laps on more down, so definitely the tail of 2 races. But the tail of the main race right now is on front because Holland has a run once again on Soroy as they come down the back straight. He's going to go to the inside, and Soroy actually backs off a little bit before they get to the turn, knowing that he wasn't going to be able to fight it off on the outside. Maybe he could be setting himself up for passing the boot. Who knows?
Interesting to note that Holland has 7 wins out of the 9 rounds we've run so far. If he gets another, that is an astonishing record, 80%. Now, we've seen more in the PRL in some other series. There's been drivers who've won every single race of the season. Even still, this is no mean feat, especially considering Greg Seitz has been pushing him the whole way, and has at times actually been quicker.
Yeah, sometimes the way in which you tell how good a driver is who finished second to them.
So as they continue this battle on, Soroy dropping off a little bit. This is not the time that he wants that to happen. He's got to get right back up on that rear wing, and now as they come down into the 9D, if he drops much farther back, this might be race over for him.
Yeah, well, was coming out of a boot last lap. I think Soroy got a bit of dirt there, and if he had to back off a little bit, that would have cost him some top-end speed going back up a hill. We've got a battle for 6th place going on between Stephen Ferradi and Nicholas Delp. Delp poked his nose out down the inside, entering turn 1, but that wasn't on. And unfortunately, I think it's cost him because he's lost quite a bit of track position to Ferradi going up through the S's, and I'm not sure he'll be able to make a pass by the time they get to the carousel.
Yeah, I really think that was an ill-advised move. I just don't understand why drivers even attempt to make a pass into that first corner, especially since they've had plenty of experience up to this point to see what the slipstream can do. But obviously, it's easy to say from out here when they're down in the car and they know what's happening a little bit more directly. But we've also got a little bit of a battle happening in 11th. McLaughlin's run Gunderson back down after we saw him go wide into this corner that they're entering right now. Did he learn his lesson to keep it from getting up into the marbles? Yes, he did, but he still hasn't got the spot.
Look how dark it's starting to appear on the racetrack, Joe. I wonder how much that's affecting these drivers out here. Because it's getting quite late in the day, 6:15 p.m. virtual standard time. We're not going to go under any kind of lights or anything, but still it could affect the drivers a little bit.
Interestingly, we haven't lost a lot of temperature. You saw it on the screen that it's still 81 degrees Fahrenheit. So the drivers are actually dealing with pretty consistent conditions on the surface, even if it is getting just a hair darker. I think it's more due to the clouds you can see that are close to the horizon, blocking the sun a little bit. Otherwise, it's somewhat clear overhead. Still giving chase, the number 5 in McLaughlin, trying to see if he can peel 11th away from Gunderson, but it's not working thus far.
6th and 7th are side by side going down the back straight. Stephen Ferradi is on the inside. The 58, the green car of Nicholas Delp, is on the outside, and Delp was not able to get the run that he needed to do anything with Ferradi, and so the 4 car will hold on for now.
Ooh, another little bit of a peek, though, from the green car. Still not able to do anything. He's given space at the apex by Stephen. So wanted to make sure that he at least saves the car in case he really did send one in. This time, though, nice and down to that inside curb. So off the corner exit, look at the 58 start to close in a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. We've seen a lot of Scars and Mufasas out here, 2 different lines going through the corners throughout the race, and it's created some interesting battles for us, and hopefully we'll still see a lot shaping up for us in the final 10 minutes here.
As they continue to fight around the end of the lap. I'm also keeping half an eye on Gunderson and McLaughlin. This is really the more intense one at the moment. Once again, a little bit of a look, just slightly offline from Nick Delp down the front stretch. Not as drastic as we saw before, maybe setting himself up a little bit better. And indeed, this is way better than before. He is only 2/10 behind and gaining fast.
Yeah, this is much better executed, as you mentioned. He'll be able to get a slipstream right as they're straightening out the wheels to go down the back straight. Interestingly enough, though, I mean, he still gets a good run, but not much of one. Almost one day this is a setup difference where Stephen Verady has that car more trimmed down for the straights than Delp does, but Verady doesn't close the door on Delp. He leaves it open, in fact. However, that 4 car will have a desired inside line, or maybe not. Delp throws it in deeper and is able to come out on top.
Wow, brave stuff from the 58 to finish that off on the outside of the chute. But it did what it did, and that got him 6th place as McLaughlin and Gunderson are once again wheel to wheel down into the carousel. To the inside, it is Gunderson with the outside McLaughlin, but it switches around. McLaughlin now with the inside of the chutes. That didn't work for the last car we saw try it. This time, though, it works a little bit better for Owen. Still doesn't have it done. Gunderson going to give another shot down into the toe of the boot as they continue to lose lots of time with all this side-by-side racing. And Eric LeBlanc has now closed it in to less than a car length.
Yeah, I think that's the first time we've really mentioned that name today, Eric LeBlanc. He started 14th. He's up to 13th. Don't know if he ran into any kind of issues earlier on in the race, but here he goes. He's getting by these drivers who have came from the back of the grid to the front, and boy, slams the door on Gunderson there. So, yeah, I'm not really sure what the story of Eric LeBlanc's race has been, but he wants to end it on a high note, and right now, Matthew Gunderson started this lap in 11th. He's been shuffled all the way back to 14th.
Well, the second one of those cars, you can't blame him too much for being overtaken. That's Kranefoos, who is now up to 13th. Remember, he had that slow pit stop, so he's out of position. And down to the inside, LeBlanc is flying. LeBlanc, another driver, actually, who had a slow stop as I look at his stats now on my screen. Hence why we're seeing them manage to overtake those two so easily.
Yeah, the bad news for LeBlanc and Kranefoos now is they have 16 seconds of air in front of them before they catch the line and Duprat. And the bad news for Eric LeBlanc is that probably means Daniel Kranefoos wants to make quick work of him. And I think he's going to be... Oh, boy, LeBlanc turned in quite early there.
Yeah, I almost thought we were going to see a repeat of lap 2. Thankfully not. And Kranefoos and LeBlanc come out the other side. Behind them, Gunderson and McLaughlin were still fighting. Not missing anything up front, although bad news for fans of David Soroy. He's fallen back to 1.4 seconds, so he's lost touch with Holland for the second time this race.
Yeah, and that's almost outside of slipstream and range right there, and so Holland are looking fairly comfortable as they enter their closing laps.
6 more minutes left to go here. It's dying down on this first season of 2020. It's been a good race, if not an attrition-filled race. Tyler Gore and Paul Wildridge as well have been giving some action. We haven't had time to go and glance at them. Wildridge currently has the edge on that one for 17th. Whoop, and back to the inside. Look at that aggressive move into turn 9 from Gore.
Yeah, the nice thing about this battle is if they crash, the next car behind them is 3 laps down, and we're right about the point where we've only got about 3 laps left, so they won't lose anything.
Well, that can be good and bad news because you don't want too aggressive of a move that you could take each other out. Everybody wants to see the checkered flag. They plunge down into the 90 once more. We ride on board with Tyler Gore.
You know what I think, Joe? As David Holland comes across the line here, I want to watch what the timing actually says as he crosses the line. I think we are just outside of 3 laps to go. I think we're going to have 4 laps to go, and I hope all the drivers are counted for that extra lap.
Yeah, same here. It's always one of those worries when the lap count is tight. If you fudge it a little bit, you could find yourself sputtering to the line. And that has happened in this series with a few drivers before. Still, this fight that we brought back on screen has Gore back in front of Wildridge. They were side by side through the carousel. That's Josh Daniels behind them, which is the next car down in position. But as you mentioned, 3 laps down.
Yeah, it's Josh down. Josh Daniels might be a fan of the extra lap. And meanwhile, we've got Cranefoos and LeBlanc on track here. I think this one might be done and dusted, though. Cranefoos has been a little bit faster and is pulling away from LeBlanc. But you can see all these cars from them on back are about a second apart. All it takes is a simple slip up for any of them, and there'll be a battle.
Absolutely. 1 second now separating the 55 from the 542, and he's not even riding in his slipstream. Hovering down the middle of the track, Eric LeBlanc. I'm kind of curious as to why he's decided to do that. Certainly not helping him. We just crossed the line with our leader with about 3:40 to go, and that was a big snap there as we were riding on board with Blanc. Thankfully did not lose it. That is a very common place to see cars destroyed.
Yeah, so that's 3 laps left to go for Holland, because 3:40 to go, as you mentioned. 2 laps is 3 minutes 20 seconds around here, so we'll have 20 seconds left on the clock when he starts the final lap. And most of the battles kind of broken up a little bit, but as we keep saying, all it takes is one slip up for any of these drivers, and the driver behind them will be on the coattails of their slipstream, and we'll end up with a couple of passes between now and the end of the race. So it's definitely not over yet. These drivers have got to try and keep it on the grey stuff in the closing stages. Really, the best battle still is the one for last place for 17th and 18th with Tyler Gore and Paul Wheelwood. They're all over each other.
Ooh, and he's going to get a good run coming off of turn 9. He's willing to risk it on the left-hander. This is a very quick corner with a little bit of banking to boot, but it's just not enough for him. So they finish another lap. You know, something we haven't touched on, I mentioned that Soroy was well behind Seitz. Seitz is going to be scored in last place today. We need to check and see how many points you get for 26, because there's no drop points on the board for Greg Seitz. Soroy could actually steal second in the championship today. Here we go again between these two. And boy, pinching him down. Wildridge is not willing to give any space to Tyler Gore. And at these speeds, that can actually spell disaster. He's got to be careful about that. Looks like he's going to have to do it from around the outside into the carousel. And I think he's got it as Gore slots back into line.
Stephen Verradi has had a crash. He's taken the tow to the pits. His car is sitting down in pit road with a lot of damage on it. He'd been running up in 7th.
Ooh, it was a self-made error. There was another driver dipping his wheels into the grass out of the toe of the boot, and he spun it into the Armco, unfortunately. So that promotes a lot of drivers up in position. I think that was Clenard in 3rd before, or was... I'm trying to remember where he was when he spun. Right now, that number 24 kind of riding on his lonesome. And actually, now that I think of it, yes, I do believe Clenard was in 3rd before.
Yeah, Verradi had been running around in 7th position at the time of the incident.
That's right. So that's everybody from there on down going up 1 spot. That's 2 drivers up at the front that have had a quiet day. Clenard there in 3rd, and then Sebastian Prue. We saw him with a little bit of fights going on at one point, but he's now 4.5, almost 5 seconds behind Clenard, but he's riding in 5th, and it's at least looking like a decent finish in his final race of the season. We are on the white flag lap because David Holland has just recently crossed the line and is now heading up the S's for the final time this race.
Yeah, and The good news for fans who like to see a good fair race is that I don't see any of our leaders coming into the pits to top off with fuel, so they all seem fairly confident that they can make it around one more lap, and that shouldn't be an issue.
Some incredible stats this season for Holland. 8 times in the top 5 out of the 9 races so far, so only missed it once. 5 poles out of the 9 that he's run. That'll be 5 out of 10, actually, so half the races he took the pole. And then he also took the fastest lap in at least half the races, because he's got 5 of those. We need to wait and see if he'll seal that here today. In fact, similar stats from Greg Seitz. Really, the only difference is the wins column. 7 wins on Holland to Seitz's 2, but for Seitz, 7 top 5s, 4 poles, 4 fastest laps. He clearly has something for him, just does not have the luck that this man has. Holland having racked up multiple championships. Something about the way the number 18 drives. It seems like he cannot be caught and he cannot be beaten. He's not impervious, but he is certainly difficult. As he comes around the final corner of the final race of the season, David Holland takes the win here in New York.
It was a great drive by him to hold off David Savoy. Obviously, I'm not too happy himself with how that opening incident gone down. You never really want to win a race after contact. But speaking of winning a race after contact, who's going to get 16th? Because this is just so fun to watch these two. Paul Wildridge is on the outside now. Tyler Gore on the inside. They almost come together entering the carousel. And in fact, Paul Wildridge kicked out wide into the runoff area, and I think that might finally end this battle.
Yeah, he's very far back at this point. Let's see. Oh, and that will end it for him. And oh no, that is poor Josh Daniels, who is going to end his race there too, although he wasn't going to gain any more positions. Makes life easy on Tyler Gore, who will easily ride to 16th now. So all this really does is hurt pride, since it doesn't affect either one too badly. Glenard did take 3rd, by the way, Proy into a quiet 4th. Raymond Day with a top 5. We're going to come back with all of the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around, though, because on screen you're going to see all the upcoming races here on GSRC. Welcome back to Watkins Glen International, the season finale for the PRL F3 series, sponsored by NinjaTrader, was won by David Holland. His 8th win out of 10 rounds tells you everything you need to know about how he did this season. David Savoy, though, we think he may have clinched 2nd place with this 2nd place finish on track. As Rod Clenard finished in third today, rounding out the podium. Sebastian Proy with a fourth place was followed by Raven Day in P5. Nick Delp finished sixth today. Andrew Duffy with a P7, then had Christopher Richards in eighth position. Nice climb for him from 17th to 8th. Lionel Duprat took ninth, and Daniel Cranefoos, after an unusually long pit stop, wound up in 10th.
Likewise, a long pit stop for Eric LeBlanc saw him lose a few positions mid-race, but he came back to finish 11th. Owen McLaughlin finishes 12th, and Matthew Gunderson 13th from 25th on the grid. Don Lee finishes in 14th ahead of Sheldon Rosenbaum, but I know the big question everyone wanted to know at the top of the broadcast was who would get that elusive 16th place finish, and at the end of the day it was Tyler Gore who did the hard fighting against Paul Wildridge, who wasn't quite able to make it home. Stephen Verady down there in 18th place after a late crash ahead of Joshua Daniels, poor red car that didn't quite make it to the finish line, but finishes in 19th ahead of Daniel Barnett.
Everybody else from there on down were sadly DNFs today. It was a very rough day out here in New York, but not quite as rough for David Holland. David, I'm sure you would have wanted a little bit more of a battle there, especially at the end with Greg Seitz, but it looked like early in the race it was just not meant to be.
Oh, guys, I can't tell you how disappointing it is. Really just takes the wind right out of your sails. I mean, I almost contemplated just pulling it in and parking it, man. Like it's too many times this season. You know, in real life, you obviously don't have to think about this, but I need to add it to my checkdowns at the beginning of a race. I don't know if it's a little bit different in hosted sessions, but geez, on the first lap, I kind of gave him some room there. And then on the next lap, he gave me a little bit of room there on the inside. We never got the clear call out. And, it looked like there was a foot, 2 feet between us, and just net code strikes again. Super disappointing. I know Greg puts in quite a bit of time during the week, and so do I. So having this happen, especially at the start, like I said, is just really disappointing. Hopefully next season we can get it cleaned up. I don't know. We'll have to figure something out.
Well, it's really illustrative of how good of a sportsman you are, looking for a good fight rather than just dominating things. But you also had a little bit of a battle towards the end, and that was kicked off from pit stops. We thought you looked like you entered a little slow down into pit lane. Was that a case of you just trying to make sure that you don't throw it away coming in too hot, or were we just seeing things?
No, that's exactly right. I didn't get to practice my entry as much as I would have liked, and I had bended a couple times during practice trying to get it in there. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to play it extra safe. I had to take the pit limiter off, speed back up, and then put it back on. It was really bad.
Well, that explains a lot, because Soroy seemed to really catch up to you. Then you had that nice little fight going on. It seemed like he gave you a run for his money.
Yeah, absolutely. Soroy's been quick all season. It's been fun battling him. Again, another really clean racer. And I look forward to running with him again next season. I think he's going to be right up there with us.
Certainly looks like he was quick today. But again, congratulations. That was David Holland, our winner here today, 8th win of the season. Up next, I believe Sam has caught up with that man who tried to challenge him, David Soroy, P2 at the end of the day.
Yeah, David, congrats on a great race out there today. How are you feeling? I know it wasn't a win, but it was still a solid performance. Either you're speechless or you're having a couple of mic issues. There you go.
Okay, sorry. First, congratulations to David for the win in the championship. I'm very happy with second place. I have been struggling with the setup all week. So a big thank you to my teammate Jean-François Matt, who gave me a very good setup before the race. I felt much quicker with that setup compared to mine. But I'm very happy with second place.
How big of a difference was setup here? Like, were some cars more trimmed out than others? Were there big gains to be made in straight line speed with lower wing angles?
I don't think there was a lot of difference between a low wing or a higher wing setup. I think the gain we had over the straight line, we were losing it in the corner. So at the end of the lap, it was about the same.
All right, now, David, you weren't able to challenge for the championship win. You weren't up there battling David Holland for the championship win this season, but you're very consistent. You're very fast. Have you learned a couple of lessons or tricks this season that makes you think you could challenge for the title next year?
Well, it's hard to say. The season, the start of I have had some problems in the early in the season, but I think I have been stronger and stronger race after race. I'm very happy with the season, but I knew I didn't have a shot with David Holland and Greg Seitz for to challenge for the championship, and I didn't want to fight hard on the race for the win because I'm not comfortable enough with the car yet. For next season, I will need much more practice time, which I don't really have. So I'm doing my best, and I think I'm much I'm much better. I'm much more consistent, but not fast enough to challenge for the win yet.
All right. Well, your better was still. You've got very good pace, David. I'm sure a win isn't too far away from you in a not too distant future. Hopefully, we'll see you again next season. I'm sure you'll pick up a couple. And thanks for coming here tonight and talking to us. Congrats on the second place finish.
Thank you. I would like to thank my team, La Voix Motorsport, and my sponsors, Karting Offered and Nitro 360. Thanks to you guys. You're doing a very good job.
That was David Soroy, who finished in second. We've got Rod Clenard, third place finisher. While everybody else seemed to have a lot of action battling with one another, Rod, yours seems honestly a little bit uneventful.
Yeah, there's no little bit about it. It was just how I like it. Quiet, to myself. I could manage the gap back to I forgot the guy that was behind me, but I could manage that. I could burn the wick a little hotter if I needed to. And it was just an enjoyable race for me.
Well, obviously this ends up the season, which means we'll get new toys soon here with the build coming up. We've heard a little bit of a teaser on a few of the items. Is there anything that's caught your eye coming up here on iRacing that you want to try and mess around with here?
Well, I heard there was a Monday night tournament coming up or something like that. I might take a look.
Is indeed. I believe you guys, PRL is going to be racing the Porsche Cayman on that one, which should be fun. So we're looking forward to that as well. Sorry to make this one a little bit short, Rod, but we got another broadcast come up. Anybody you'd like to thank before you go?
Huge shout out to everybody at PRL, Global SimRacing Channel, and NinjaTrader. It was an awesome season. Thanks to everybody for what you do. You did an awesome.
Great stuff. That was Rod Clenard, who took third today, the Texan, with a nice podium to wrap things up. As we are going to wrap it up with a big thank you to our sponsors, starting off with NinjaTrader. Again, if you want to check them out, you can find them at NinjaTrader.com. Of course, also thanks to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Make sure and subscribe to the channel by clicking the big red subscribe button. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast, listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, Sam, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, including our one coming up in just a moment's time here. So make sure and mark them down on your calendar and stick around. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.